In this video, I want to talk a little bit about individual well-being and in particularly everyday wellness in the context of how individual level processes and that it can occur at different times and at different frequencies aggregate and how they work together and how this can have two core dimensions to it. There's definitely more than that, and it's much broader than that. But a good starting place is to consider these two dimensions is one within the individual process itself and two connecting two individual processes or two simultaneously occurring individual processes that may not occur at the same time. And so we can look at one process, say that you're trying to engage in psychological stimulation, and this sounds like a heavy concept, but you've probably already done it. Just simply thinking thoughtfully, so connecting the ideas that you're thinking about, maybe asking a question, trying to respond to that and give a response that you think is sufficient to address that question. So providing an explanation, having some form of logical or analogical structure to that we can make sense of and can extract meaning, and that imparts some significance or value to perceptions, emotions, feelings, motivations, actions, behaviors, or the self. So we can start off with various individual level processes, and we might look at, say, psychological stimulation and think, okay, I want to write something, right? And I want to stimulate my mind in various ways, and this is going to have dual component. There's a psychological component to that, but also a physiological component, because you can be typing it or handwriting it. And sometimes just getting started, like you might be motivated by the idea or have positive feelings, emotions, thoughts, ideas in regard to writing, or even positive motivations, and even act enthusiastically or behave in enthusiastic ways positively towards the experience of writing, but just have difficulty getting started. And just writing a word or not thinking too much about it and just getting started writing can initiate that individual process of writing and help you to build on subsequent moments. And so here the individual process stimulates and activates various regions associated with their perceptions or psychological processes and physiological processes that begin this stimulation that activates various regions of the body and brain that in turn feed and influence and make the subsequent moments more easier, and build on that and gradually scaffold that up and essentially snowball to stronger, more efficacious effects. And that can have positive impact on our well-being and take us in directions that we did not plan on going simply by starting our course and moving in a direction that's directing energy and regulating our energy. So that's in some part of this individual level aggregation. And the more that you do that, say you do it daily or you do it every other day, or maybe once or twice a week, or this week you did it once, but next week you do it 2 or 3 times, etc., etc. These are ways of aggregating the individual level process and building that up to have greater or lesser potency of efficacy and effect. And that's going to affect our well-being at different levels and at different frequencies, especially the more that we aggregate that individual level process within that single process. So let's say it's just writing and it's reflective writing, and maybe you're answering 1 or 2 questions, but those 2 questions are related and interrelated. Maybe they're regarding the meaning in your life or just a general desire to change a type of behavior or thought pattern, or your motivations or emotions or feelings or actions in some way with regard to yourself. And another way you can look at the individual level aggregation is when we're looking at simultaneous activity of 2 individual level processes. So here you might be thinking that you want to make these positive behavior changes in your life, and you're having difficulty doing that. So you get started with just planning and brainstorming things that you can do. And so you come up with a list of, drink water, get 2 to 3 meals a day, because sometimes maybe you forget a meal here or there. So just making sure you have your staple meals, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and maybe you're skipping one of those like breakfast or dinner, and you're having like a bigger meal for lunch. And then maybe you're also incorporating something other on your list, such as physical activity. So you decide to walk to work or bike to work or school, or whatever your commitment is. And or maybe even you just add a session, like you're going to go walk to a creek nearby and get some fresh air and spend some time in nature, and you're considering all these dimensions of wellness. And so you're starting off with this brainstorm, and then you go and you just do one of those things, then you've got two individual level processes that you started. For the next day, when you start your brainstorm, you plan out and you come up with all these ideas and you pick one on those lists, you've initiated two individual processes that can initiate in the future three, or subsequently build on those two processes and allow for convergence too. So maybe on your walks, or as you're progressing throughout your day, maybe even just on that sip of water, you think back to your wellness list, or also how else you can be optimizing your wellness, that you started initially with that first individual level process of brainstorming, and just getting the thought process of thinking about your well-being through that stimulation to an activity, and that's involving all these perceptual, psychological, and physiological processes that are going on a conscious level, as well as an unconscious level, and a subconscious level in which we have loose awareness, in which is connecting really that conscious and that unconscious process and bringing it to the surface of consciousness, but also feeding on to these underlining systems that allow us to create and increase the efficacy and the effect that these individual level processes can have, especially as they become aggregated within an individual process, and also in relation to other individuated processes from each other that are operating as these individual level processes of constituency. So that's just a little bit of more of the theory end of individual level processes and how that impacts everyday well-being. So I hope you enjoy it. Bye.